Tonight.
It's back to school in Calder Valley. We'll find out what some political parties are promising on the subject of education.
And with the Santa's, Amy.
Harry, thank you. Welcome to Brooksbank School in Elland. It's the place to be tonight because a bit later on they're hosting a hustings on the subject of education. Anyone can come along and it's a chance for them to write down their questions and put them to the candidates who are all vying to be MP of Calder Valley. I'll be talking to 3 out of 4 of those candidates a little bit later on. But first, Ian White has been to meet a head teacher from Calder who says his school is underfunded and in a shocking state of disrepair. Tony Guy says millions of pounds is needed to knock down and rebuild Calder High School.
I have an MP who's not...
Let's just go back to school buildings because under Labour there was the private finance initiative and that has left local authorities in a lot of debt.
PFI wasn't always the perfect way of doing it, but we built hundreds of new schools, and that made a huge difference to people's educations. Tomberton High, Calder High schools were once described by a Tory education minister as the worst schools they'd seen, yet in 9 years they've not done anything to rebuild them. Let's go to free school meals for all. Why not just target it, use that money elsewhere? I think what we tend to find is that benefits like free school meals, people don't understand that they can access them unless they're universal. And that's why having something universal really helps. The fact is we've got... But schools get a premium for those families who need it most. Will they miss out on those premiums if everyone gets free school meals? We're going to have a fair funding formula, so no child is going to be worse off. We're also going to fund free school meals because actually making sure that children have at least one hot meal a day is the least we can do for the next generation. OK, Javid Bashir, let's talk to you. You're promising £7.6 billion by 2023, a lot less than Labour. Why?
Funding in itself has got to be found from somewhere, so there is irresponsible funding in terms of going out there to the free market and actually buying as many bonds or converting money into financial and fiscal policy to actually fund and finance everything that we do, which is why it's slightly lower.
The Institute of Fiscal Studies says that by putting that amount in, it will just bring us to the same levels as it was in 2009. So we're not any better off.
If you look at all the other benefits that are coming through, for example, the 9 months plus provisions and for all children coming to schools that are free, realise and they recognise from empirical studies and data that the more money you invest in early intervention for the children and earlier provisions, it actually has a knock-on effect to the way children outcomes in life.
Richard Phillips, how do you compete with the other parties? How are you going to make education better for children in Yorkshire?
What we want to do is bring in a radical policy where we can bring schools back down to a local level, so it's this commitment to education that is not restricted by age. I believe that standing up as an alternative vote, it's going against the norm where everyone's been let down by the same parties, and I want to be the alternative candidate for the people of Calder Valley.
Well, that's what some of the candidates for Calder Valley have had to say on education. As we said earlier, Craig Whittaker, the Conservative candidate for Calder Valley, decided not to take part in that chat. I'm joined now by some voters at Mungo Shepherd, who is the head teacher at Ash Green Community Primary School, just 5 miles away, and some sixth form students here at Brooksbank. Mungo, we're hearing lots about difficult decisions for schools. For you as a head teacher, what have those difficult decisions been?
Absolutely, being representative of all the heads in Calder, I'd say, Amy, over the last few years we've seen a reduction in real terms of funding coming into schools, stripping back of services without schools as well, behaviour support, but more often than not they're having to put in place staffing structures which are based on finance, not to do with the needs of the children.
Do you feel like you're giving the children the education that they deserve? Are you able to do that?
Absolutely doing our best, Amy. It's becoming increasingly more difficult because many of the services we used to be able to access are no longer there. We're having to pay for that. Schools are working as hard as they can. All members of school staff are going the extra mile. But what's happening, sadly, is that as school professionals move on, school leaders are having to think, can I afford to replace that member of staff? So, of course, people are doing more for less, and we always will do that. But there's no doubt in my mind that we could be doing more for the children if schools were being more adequately funded.
OK, Mungo, thank you. Let's talk to some sixth formers. We're hearing about difficult decisions for teachers. Are you feeling that as students?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like last year in Year 11...
What are the big issues for you as students?
Kind of climate change and mental health, really.
Yeah,
They're big ones, yeah.
And last question for you, Mungo. What do you want to hear tonight?
Well, I think all the major parties have said either through manifestos or through pledges that they're going to give more money to education. We'd all agree that that's absolutely given and needed. I want to hear about the priorities that they think that schools should have, when we're going to get this money in order to be able to do this, how quickly that's going to come. But also, Amy, a really important point, critical really, is how they're also going to fund things other than schools. What's going to happen to local authorities? What's going to happen to some of the services that have previously been taken away, to take the pressure off school professionals and make sure that these young people who are the adults of tomorrow, we're going to get the best possible deal.
Well, I hope you get some of those answers tonight. Harry, that's it from Brooksbank School. It's back to you.
Amy, thank you very much indeed. Let's have a look at some more